Welcome to Mind Over Matter. I'm host Archita Garg, and today we will explore the intersection of mind, wellness, and real life challenges. Today, we are joined by Cindy Wolf, certified meditation teacher, wellness advocate, and author of In the Weeds, a guide to saving your own soul on this crazy journey called motherhood. Cindy blends mindfulness with motherhood, showing how self care, awareness, and humor can transform even the most overwhelming days. Hi, Cindy. Hi, it's great to have you in my show.
Hi, Archita. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, and I hope that today's conversation is going to help a lot of listeners, especially the new mothers.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. So, Cindy, what inspired you to write In the Weeds, and how does it reflect your own journey as a mother?
So, my own journey is actually what inspired me to write it because I found myself in the weeds and I wasn't expecting it. I did not know it would be this hard. I did not know how lost I would feel. I had all the means to become a mom. I was celebrated my pregnancy. I was very excited. And then about a year in, I put my son to bed one night and I cleaned up the house. My husband wasn't home yet. And I just felt so lost. I just sat in my dark kitchen and I just kept thinking, what is wrong with me? And after some more reflection after that night, I realized that nothing was wrong with me. I was just in the depths of motherhood and I was in the weeds. And I figured out small changes I could make to bring myself back. And that's why I wrote the book, because I want to help other moms do the same.
That is such a beautiful answer. Great. And but on that note, what does being in the weeds mean for our listeners? Could you just explain?
I came to that term because I used to work in the restaurant industry. So I worked at a very busy restaurant on 33rd Street in New York City, and we were a couple blocks down from Madison Square Garden. So there were times it would get completely slammed. This was three levels of a restaurant, and we would have such a giant amount of people come in at the same time, and they all wanted something, and we had to give our attention to everybody. And it's like, that feeling like you're drowning and completely overwhelmed. But out of that feeling, when it passes, you realize, oh, I can do this. And you get a huge amount of tips and you survive, and then you do it again and again and again. And it was that feeling that I wasn't expecting in motherhood. Like you're just so overwhelmed. This little person needs every second of your time and all of your energy. And it's a very overwhelming feeling. And unlike the restaurant industry, there's no like, okay, now I can leave. I did my job and now I can walk away. And it would just felt like a continuous cycle of that. So that's the feeling that I kept coming back to in the kitchen that night.
That's so interesting. Seriously, I mean, the story that's connected to this phase, the phase of being in the woods. It's really interesting. On that note, were there any specific moments in motherhood that made you realize that guidance for self care was essential, especially for new mothers?
So with my first son, I was left with a cluster of hemorrhoids, which sounds awful, but when you push out babies, sometimes it happens. And when I was first home with him, my doctor's orders were to go sit in a bath in like a little tray and soak everything for 20 minutes a night just by myself. And at this point, my son didn't want to be put down. He liked to be held when he was eating, sleeping, which was beautiful. I loved holding him. It was incredible bonding. But those 20 minutes a night did so much for my soul. Once I got the hang of it, I started to really look forward to it. And I realized that the quiet in those 20 minutes completely by myself did something to my nervous system. It just gave me a little reset. And I didn't realize how physically challenging motherhood would be because you just have a baby and you're healing and you're hormonal and your nervous system just takes a hit because of all those incoming orders. And that quiet and that reset every night, it was almost accidental, but it gave me such a chance to refill. And that's when I said, I need to figure out how to add this into my everyday, especially after my second son came around because I didn't have the medical issue. But I knew by then, okay, I need that quiet time. I need that reset. And I deserve that reset because then I come back to him better than I was before.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, definitely self-care is important for everyone, especially when you have given birth to a literal human being. So, yeah, listeners, that insight reminds us that motherhood is as much about nurturing ourselves as it is about nurturing others. So,
Mhm.
Cindy, you have been open about the mental health challenges of motherhood. So, how did you recognize when your own mental well being was suffering?
I think it started that night in the kitchen. And then once my hemorrhoids healed and I didn't get that 20 minutes a night, I realized the difference. So that's when I said, okay, I need to find ways to add this to my everyday life. So I just started with very small changes. And then as it went on, I noticed if I missed one of my little rituals, I felt different that day. So that's when I realized, okay, these are not just little luxuries. This is actually essential to taking care of myself. And I also think there's this stigma that, moms need to escape their kids or get away and that's not how I looked at it. I actually looked at it as it was part of my job. Part of taking care of this little baby was also taking care of myself because I am the one who takes care of him. So if I show up as my best self, then he gets the best mom that he can have. So it became part of my job to take care of myself. And I started to take it very seriously. And I made everyone aware in my life that I would be taking it seriously. And they all got on board because, as the mom, you're the number one. So how you show up directly affects your kids. It's not just a luxury, it's essential.
Such powerful words. And yes, as a mom, you should be number one because only then you can take care of your children. But Cindy, what early practices or tools helped you regain balance before things got overwhelming? Could you share with our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So I started studying meditation a little deeper because I realized how that quiet really calmed everything down. So I got more into meditation. I looked at what physical challenges I could take on. I write about this one challenge called the mile a day. And it was after I had my second son and I was cleared for exercise. But I was solely in charge of 2 little humans, and I was like, "Where am I gonna find the time to sign up for a mile a day?" But I did. I was like, "I need something," and I signed up, and my two-year-old and I would go outside while the baby napped, take the baby monitor, and we would just run laps in the backyard or the driveway. And that physical challenge really helped me get back in touch with my body too. So I think there are tips for your mind, your soul, and your body. And when you implement all those little ones, it really adds up because there's more to us than just our mental health. It's also, your physical health affects your mental health, affects your soul, all of that. So, but again, they were all little doable changes that I made. And I still do them now. Even at this phase of motherhood, my boys are a little older, but I know when I need some quiet or I know when I need to move my body. And I'm unapologetic about taking that time now.
Great and amazing. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, Cindy. Like you said, that mental health is not only about, what happens inside our brains. Mental health is also connected to your physical health, your environment. So, yes, it is very important to take time out for yourself as well. So, Cindy, could you give advice for mothers, new mothers, and how can they, fight with this thing called PTSD? I think Oh, sorry, is it called postpartum stress disorder?
Hmm.
Yes. So how do new mothers deal with that?
Well, one, I think it's very important to note that if you are feeling symptoms of postpartum and you do get to a very dark place, there's no shame in asking for help. Some people need medical intervention. And if it was your baby, you would advocate for your baby. So you have to advocate for yourself as well. So that needs to be said, one. But for me, I didn't need the help of a doctor, but I did get into that darkness a little bit. So I think that's important to recognize the difference between when you need medical help or not. A huge thing I think is sleep deprivation. There's a reason that it's used as a form of torture. So that alone takes such a hit on your body and your mental health, and it's really unavoidable. I mean, unless you really have a baby nurse or something, it's you're going to lose some sleep and you're going to get into that dark place. So I think one, just recognizing that that's what's going on, giving yourself grace. If you find that you're snapping at your partner or you're crying all the time, a huge part of it could be sleep deprivation. So I would say be very honest about your need to get one good night's sleep. If there's someone you trust to take care of your baby, prioritize sleep if you can. And once you do that, if the darkness doesn't fade away, I think it might be time to see a doctor. But there are little changes you can make just to get a little bit out of the darkness. But sleep is a huge one. And then I think also just reminding yourself that you matter too. Taking care of you matters too. As soon as we have the baby, no one really asks how we are. Nobody really asks the mom, "How are you doing?" It's more like, "How's the baby? Is the baby eating?" And for good reason, because babies need a lot of care, but you do too. The mom needs care too. So I think just saying, "How am I doing?" Like getting really honest with yourself. What do I need right now? And learning how to ask for help and learning that to admit that you're struggling. It's okay to admit that you're struggling.
So true. Definitely. But advice for mothers comes from every angle. So, wherever new mothers go, everyone is giving them some kind of other advice or the other. So, what's the best piece that you have received? And conversely, what's the worst?
I don't know if I've ever received good advice. I feel like so much advice thrown at you is unsolicited and not very helpful in the moment. I would say the worst advice I've ever received was someone told me not to hold my baby so much because he might get used to that. And I remember thinking, I know this goes against what I feel he needs right now. So I'm not going to listen to that. And that brings up another good point about boundaries, which is also a chapter in the book. But once I had my son, my ability to look out for him and set boundaries with people that maybe did not have my best interest at heart became very, very clear. And I think that's a gift that you get from motherhood. You get very clear about what your baby needs. And if you quiet the outside noise and the unsolicited advice, you know deep inside what your baby needs. And I think learning how to shut out those outside voices is one of the greatest gifts of motherhood. Just listen to yourself. Look for that inner voice and trust yourself. The other advice, take what you can, leave what you can. Even my advice is very tailored to find what works for you. This is your home, your baby, your life. Good time to check in with yourself and listen to yourself. There's no one size fits all. And that's the problem with unsolicited advice is it's very generic and often not helpful at all.
Definitely. And that perspective gives listeners permission to create boundaries around guidance, a radical act of self love. So, Cindy, you have mentioned that sometimes when you need the time for yourself, you take it out, which is great. But how has putting yourself first, even occasionally, transformed your life both inside and outside of motherhood?
I think it's just giving me such a personal sense of power. Like Now I know that I deserve to say, how am I doing? How do I feel right now? What do I need right now? And it's funny because they say motherhood teaches you how to be less selfish, which I think is true because you're giving so much time and energy to caring for your little one. But it's also given me a chance to be a little selfish or to say, I matter too. So I think I wasn't expecting that lesson from motherhood. I knew I would be thrust into the role of taking care of someone else, and that's an honor. But I've also found a way to put myself first. And I think you always have to do that. You always have to put your own oxygen mask on first because you're no good to anyone if you're a shell of yourself.
So true, so true. Um, but do you still have moments that feels overwhelming despite these practices?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. It never goes away. I think, if anything, I'm very honest about that too, is that parenting changes and doesn't really get easier. Physically, I've noticed a difference now in because I have two boys, and now that they're 8 and 10, they're not as physically active. So physically, it has gotten easier that I'm not chasing after them at full speed so they don't get hit by a car. But parenting just keeps getting harder. So I think the more you can do when your child first comes, or even before, if you can prepare, the more you learn to take care of yourself, the better you'll be for the rest of parenting because it never ends. And your self care might change. You might need 15 minutes of quiet when they're babies, and you might need like a different meditative practice or something when they're older. But the same constant remains that you need to know your warning signs and you need to know when you need some time to yourself. But it's never done, I don't think. Even when they grow up, I don't think it'll be done.
Sure, that is true, but it also shows that self care isn't a one time fix, but a lifelong compassionate practice. So, you have, yeah,
Mhm.
so you have given a lot of advice to mothers, which they definitely need. But I think for the listeners who are about to be soon to be fathers or are, expecting to start a family soon. So, what about them? What do you think? What role do they play in the mental health of a mother?
So for fathers, yes, I think having a really honest conversation with your partner would be a very good step. I think perhaps creating some kind of check ins, like let's have a weekly check in, see how I'm doing. Um, Letting your partner know ways they can support you. I know that for me, my husband would always say, "Oh, the baby only wants you," or "He only wants you." And that was true. And that was an honor. But when I had my medical issue and I had to go up in the bathroom for 20 minutes, he found a way to watch the baby. So I think if you're both in it and you both acknowledge, okay, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard on us as a couple. But we're going to put tools in now to check in. I as the mom, you're the one who's hormonal and you're going to need healing too. I think acknowledging that is huge too. So a lot of partners don't realize that it takes an entire year after you have a baby to physically heal. So I think maybe a little more education for our partners wouldn't be such a bad idea, but I think open communication overall is the best path. The check-ins, the being honest about how you're feeling, the asking for help, I think would all be really beneficial.
Absolutely. I mean, after all, children are not only the mother's responsibility, it's a 50-50 partnership. So, yes, absolutely. So, Cindy, beyond mindfulness, do you have a go-to routine or principle or recipe that nourish your body and your spirit?
I do have this thing where I really prioritize the little things. So I always make time for my morning coffee. I always do a gratitude practice in the morning. I have my things that I have set up for myself, and that might look different for someone else. But the main thing is that I know I deserve those things. So I think just sometimes making that shift to know you deserve it. And each phase of motherhood, you'll find ways to get it. But the little things really add up. So, it's so tempting when things feel out of control to make this huge list of everything you want to change. It can feel like the little things don't count, but they do. And the little things are the easiest ones to keep going in your routine because I drink coffee every morning. So having a coffee and a gratitude ritual is an easy go to for me. And I think people will find that if they have enough of those little things, they add up and make a big difference, but they're also easy to keep in your routine because they're just little. So that would be my number one trick is find little doable things that on repeat make a huge difference and carry them with you through the rest of your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners, Cindy. So, how do these small rituals that you just mentioned contribute to your ability to be present for your family, especially as a mother?
I think just by giving me a chance to listen to my own voice or check in with what I need, it actually makes me even more receptive to my children's needs. Because when my needs are met and I feel balanced and I feel filled up and I feel physically healthy, then I can be super present for them. And I can help them if they don't feel well. And I'm not resentful of them for taking my time or if they're home from school sick. As balanced as I stay, the more balanced I can help them be too.
Great. That emphasizes that true wellness integrates both mind and body. That
Mhm.
little daily choices ripple outward.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much, Cindy, for sharing all of that with our listeners. I am sure that it is going to be very, very helpful for all of our listeners, male, female. So thank you again. But if any of our listeners want to connect with you and get more advice, so how can they do that? Could you share with them?
Sure. So my website is Cindy Caprio Wolf, and then my book is In the Weeds, and it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble online, as well as Walmart online. And there's a button you can email me to from my website. Oh, and I also have
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram in the weeds.
Okay, great. So I'll have all the details on my show listing so that the listeners can reach out to you whenever they feel like it.
Mhm.
So thank you, Cindy. Listeners, Cindy reminds us that motherhood is a journey, not a performance. Mindfulness, self-care, and humor aren't luxuries; they are essential tools for staying grounded. So, if today's conversation inspired you, take a moment tonight to nourish yourself, even in a small way. Your well being is the soil from which your family and life can truly flourish.